Good evening, members. We are not expecting a fire drill this evening, so if the fire alarm goes off during the meeting, please leave by the nearest emergency exit and make your way to gather outside Runnymede Hall. Please note that this meeting is being live streamed. In the event of any technical difficulties, the meeting will be recorded and uploaded after it concludes, making it available for viewing the following day. Please switch off your mobile phones or to silent. Welcome to this meeting of Overview and Scrutiny Committee. I am Councillor Grace Watson, the chair of this committee. Can I ask members to introduce themselves, please, starting from my left?
Good evening, Councillor Carol Sage.
Good evening, Councillor Sue Brooke.
Good evening, Councillor Lorraine Larman.
Good evening, Councillor David Thomas.
Good evening, Councillor Matt Cortez.
Good evening, everyone. Councillor Kieran Bowker.
Good evening, Councillor Alan Edwards, Thundersley South.
Good evening, Councillor Diana Jones.
Good evening, Councillor Kate Knott.
Good evening, Councillor Nick Harvey.
And tonight we also have the Cabinet member. Please can you introduce yourself?
Good evening, everybody. I'm Councillor Barry Palmer, Cabinet Member for Economic Growth and Climate.
Thank you. The first item on the agenda, is apologies. It's all right, I'll wake up in a minute.
We've received apologies from Councillor Ainsley and Councillor Bredding.
Item 2, members' interest. Are there any interests to declare? Councillor.
The individual that's mentioned in the Economic Development Strategy and Action Plan, Chris Jones, is my husband.
Thank you, Councillor Jones. Minutes. Members, following a request at the last meeting from Councillor Jones for an amendment to be made to the minutes of the 2nd July meeting, this matter was raised with the Chief Executive, who has suggested some revised wording for the minutes of the 2nd of July. These minutes, with the revised wording, the minutes of the meeting held on October the 1st, plus the minutes for this evening's meetings, will all be included on the agenda on the 5th of November committee meeting. Item 3, Report of Economic Development Strategy and Action Plan. Members, we have before us a report from the Assistant Director, Climate and Growth, which represents a draft Economic Development Strategy and Action Plan. Mr. Masters, please introduce your report.
Okay, good evening, members. You have a report before you tonight asking to approve the draft Economic Development Strategy and Action Plan for Castle Point. To give some background, in April, members agreed to form a task and finish group looking at the key issues facing the economy to develop the economic strategy. There's some key themes that we wanted to pick up, such as the fact that Castle Point has among the lowest GVA in Essex. Therefore, having a strong economic strategy for the borough is vital to improve job growth, prospects for our residents, and make sure our economy grows. The Task and Finish group held 5 meetings since then, with the initial meetings focused on reviewing data collected from national level, from ONS, NOMIS, business surveys, one-to-one engagements, and some forecasting data, which are all included within the appendices of the report. Over the course of the meeting, the group were joined by experts in skills and training and business support. And in terms of the context of the strategy, the front end sets out Castle Point's position in the wider economy against South Essex and the national economy in terms of where we fit with the government's industrial strategy. In terms of the contents of the strategy itself, we arrived on 4 priority themes amongst the group, so they, with a series of actions underneath each of the themes. So they focused on supporting our businesses. So how do we make sure our businesses are competitive and can adapt to challenges both at startup and growth? Building a skilled workforce, so skills was a big theme within the Task and Finish group, making sure our residents are both aware but also upskilled enough to access the opportunities around them. And skills provision and training was a very strong theme throughout the course of the meetings. Growing productivity and economic participation, which is around ensuring older residents are able to participate and give back to the economy, and developing our town centres. We felt that these were the key themes and key actions underneath that needed tackling in the borough, and the data pointed to this. So within each of these themes, we've identified an achievable yet ambitious set of actions that can be delivered over the next 3 years. There are 22 actions in total. As we said, many of these can actually be delivered in partnership, and a lot of it is around promotion, amplifying what's already out there around things like apprenticeships, business support, that side of things, and continuing and growing what we've done quite well over the past couple of years, but how can we continue that beyond? So that I'll leave it there for my intro to the strategy. I won't go through all the actions, but hopefully members can have a chance to review them and provide any feedback. Thank you.
Thank you. Members, do you have any questions? Councillor Knott.
Thank you, Chair. Just a question. What is My Future Aspiration Programme with primary schools? Would you mind explaining?
Yes, absolutely. Yes. So there's just by way of background. So the aspirations theme across all ages came over quite strong in terms of raising aspirations. There is an existing programme for primary schools, which is called My Future. It began in Southend. It was by a charitable organisation that set it off. I know that programme from my time working at Basildon Council. We bought into it at Basildon. It's been running for about 2 years and it's been very successful. Essentially, it's bringing employers from industry into primary schools in video sessions, which basically introduces them to an idea of a job, a career. It's very understandable. It's all about breaking stereotypes, only men do construction, that sort of thing. So it opens the youngsters' ideas up to a world of careers, where careers provision typically kind of starts from year 7, really. This programme has brought it to Essex from a younger age, from that primary age, from year 3, I think. So it's all about what we're saying is we're not trying to reinvent the wheel. We've got this programme that works quite well. It's got some results. Why not bring it into Castle Point? That's essentially what that programme is.
Independent person, Jenny Beaumont.
Hi, I'm really interested in this area that you're just talking about now. I mean, a charity that I've been involved with is Inspiring the Future, and they organise a lot of this kind of activity across both sectors in the education system, and it's a really good way of getting people from the locality to come into your education establishments, both primary and secondary, and indeed colleges, and talk to young people about the skills needed and how to get into professions. And they've got a huge resource online, and it is free to join. And I mean, I've done quite a few sessions at schools with them, and it is extremely well received. So I just wonder whether it may be worth just looking at that as a possibility as well. But they are very strong on primary futures at the moment, and I know that's a big topic for you. So it's just a suggestion, really. And the other thing would be is, do you work with Directions, the Essex County Council Independent Advice and Guidance Service?
The mic's still on, sorry. That's fine. No, thank you very much for the first suggestion. I'd vaguely heard of them, but it'd be very good to talk to you offline about about that. What? No, sorry. I'm just saying I'd heard of the programme. I did hear what you said, so sorry. I had heard of vaguely Aspiring the Futures, but it would be good to talk to you offline, perhaps, about about that and how it could fit with the My Future programme. Yeah, excellent, yeah.
When you engage with the charity, you can say how far you're prepared to travel. So they'll try and sort of match you to an area. So it does work quite well. And they do have some heavyweight sponsors there as well, from people like Merrill Lynch and some of those big companies in London. So it just might be useful, particularly for your secondary schools and your college, but also primary as well, because of those objectives that are increasingly important at the moment.
No, thank you very much. Very helpful. No, we can certainly look into that. We are linked in with partners with Essex County Council and the Great Essex Careers Hub as well. So they're going into secondary schools already in the borough, trying to sort of coordinate some of that, which is one of the actions. So anything that can aid that is greatly helpful, really. We've got a monthly skills partnership group that operate in Castle Point with the County Council and various training providers. So yeah, that's very helpful. Happy to look into that.
Thank you for that, Jenny. Councillor Edwards.
I think the budget that we've got here is quite tightly targeted and I think, in my view, very modest. Are we using the full amount that is budgeted for the year for this activity, or is there anything in particular that we could do if we spent a little more to get more impact?
So obviously we're very conscious of the fact that as a council we have a balanced budget, and this is a growth item, and it will need to be considered as part of the budgeting process that the council goes through sort of January, February time next year. And clearly there are other pressures on our resources, and some of those are statutory duties that we can't neglect. So I think it's modest, reflecting on that, and I think if there was more opportunity, potentially we would look further, and there is potentially scope to review this at a later point in time. But for now, I think it probably needs to be modest given those additional pressures.
Thank you.
Members, are there any further questions? Councillor Jones.
Thank you, Chair. One of the things that occurred to me as I was reading through the report today, which didn't occur to me at the time as part of the Task and Finish group, unfortunately, was there's no mention of provision for the disabled community to access training and opportunities. Is there any way to redress this, please?
Yes, I'm sure we can make an addition. As it happens, through that partnership group, we're linked in with ECL, who are called Essex Cares Limited, and they provide a lot of opportunities for people with disabilities and additional needs. And not to make promises, but myself and Simon, the Learning and Development Lead, are due to speak to them about potential supported internships. So that's just an idea that's been explored, but we're trying to encourage, obviously, businesses to take on working with people like ECL opportunities. So, yeah, absolutely see it should be added.
Jenny Beaumont.
Thank you. Can I just ask you about the NEAT figures in the report as well? I mean, I'm not sure you're aware, but today a report has come out from the Resolution Foundation specifically about the data relating to NEAT figures across the country and the considerable acceleration in those numbers over the last sort of 10 years or so. And making a lot of links there with ill health, prospects and employment as well. And I know you've made some of those points in your report. But I suppose the thing that I was concerned about was the number of not known that you have there. It's a very large number of not known, and bearing in mind that these young people are some of the most vulnerable young people in our society. I was just concerned about that. I wondered if you had any observations about why that might be a specific problem in this area. And also, have you sort of compared those figures with other neighbouring authorities?
Yes, the neat figures we typically get a month in arrears via the county council, who've got a dedicated neat team. From my understanding from Job Centre and others, the not known figure is a real tricky situation. It's rising across all areas really. So obviously you're quite well informed in the field, but it's somewhere that economically inactive, not known, it is a growing area within the borough, but also nationwide. So it's tricky to say because sometimes we know what they're doing, but they're just not claiming or in work. There's a group worklessness, I guess you could call them. But yeah, it's difficult to pin it down. So we can certainly do some more investigation with people that are on the ground to try and get to the bottom of that. Yeah, make that key part of the strategy. Because they're effectively, as you said, the people that fall in through the cracks. And yeah.
Thank you. Are there any further questions? No? Members, I will move the recommendation set out at paragraph 3.1 of the report. Do I have a seconder? Councillor Cortez.
I'll gladly second it.
Thank you. Is that agreed, members? Yeah. Thank you. I would just like to add my thanks to the councillors and the officers who worked on the task and finish group for the work they have done. There's some very, very good work there, and thank you all very much. Item 4, Visitor Economy Action Plan. Members, we have before us a report from the Assistant Director, Climate and Growth, which presents the draft Visitor Economically Action Plan. Mr. Masters, please introduce the report.
Thank you, Chair. So you have a report again before you asking members to approve the Visitor Economy Action Plan for the Borough. This is the first action plan Castle Point have produced which focuses specifically on tourism, and we're quite excited actually to present it. The Task and Finish group have been working quite hard to identify a strong set of actions to grow both the volume and the value of the economy for tourism in the borough. We've again collected lots of data from Visit Essex that tells us what the tourism spend has been for 2022. The last set of data we had was 2014, so 2022 and more recently 24, that kind of shows you the picture of how the the tourism data has changed over the years, so and what has grown and been more popular. So throughout the development of the strategy, we have had feedback from members to identify the assets and opportunities for promotion. We've also engaged with key operators and community groups and businesses in the sector. This fed into the SWOT analysis on page 16. And of course the actions. We've also taken some inspiration from what has worked well elsewhere, talking to our neighbours, and have had positive conversations with colleagues at Southend and Rochford, as well as Visit Essex. The starting point was to ask ourselves what are Castle Point's strengths and what makes us an attractive destination to visitors. A strong visitor brand for Castle Point is crucial, and this could be used on websites, visitor entry points and signages, and on marketing material. So that's one of the recommended actions, was around that branding piece and growing that. We've proposed working with the expertise of Visit Essex and through the partnership group to achieve this. So they're kind of on step one, we would form a partnership group effectively and work with Visit Essex using that expertise. Building on this, there are 3 themes of focus similar to the ED strategy, but one less theme, picking out the borough's strengths and areas which we could develop. They were heritage, food, drink and recreation, including events, both promoting and encouraging more to take place in the borough. just a side note, we've had discussions with the leisure team around their event strategy and how it could be complementary. So this is very much about things that are happening, can happen in our town centres, villages, etc. And outdoor activities, including sport, both competitive and hobbyist. So for this one, there are 17 recommended actions. Again, it's over a 3-year period, and the actions can be delivered in the short and medium term, with 10 of these actions can be delivered, we feel, in the first year. So first 12 months we can get on and start delivering it and doing the stuff. So I would say that there's some real strong collaboration with the likes of the leisure team, with parking and assets, and it puts a real good focus on green tourism and active and healthy spaces. So there's strong relationship with the ED strategy, with other strategies, building this. So I think members can see the actions for themselves. Thank you for the members that worked on this task and finish group and the other one. That'll do. Thank you.
Thank you. Do members have any questions? Councillor Jones.
Thank you. And again, I have to say that we've rather overlooked the offer for accessibility and inclusivity within that strategy for disabled and wheelchair users, for wheelchair-friendly destinations with proper disabled toilets, such as changing places toilets. If that can be added in, thank you.
Yeah, apologies, Councillor, that that's been missed. We will make sure that is certainly added in. I see no reason why we can't add that as make that much more clearer as an action. Noted that.
Councillor Edwards.
I did have 2 questions. I've now got 3. Can I just ask why your point's not being picked up in the equalities screen on these policies? I'll come back to the other 2.
I believe it has, but if it hasn't, it was simply an oversight for me. So I've noted that now. Apologies. I mean, we have made a point about the venues and tried to ascertain which ones are accessible, but we'll try and make that more clear. So, but thank you for pointing it out. That was just on my part.
Thank you. I'm just looking. I'm on page. There's no page. I'm on section 6 of the action plan. Under marketing, we're talking about developing a brand, communicating the culture and tourism offer. And a bit further down, we're talking about producing physical documents for entry points to the borough. What evidence have we got that shows that paper brochures actually have a real impact as opposed to investment in making sure we're discoverable online?
Essentially, the strategy aims to tackle both. So we're wanting to improve our online presence through that branding piece, but it was also something that kind of members were keen on, the idea of essentially, you arrive in the borough, you get a brochure, sorry, lost my train. You arrive at, say, the library or at any arrival point. I think areas like Malden we're using as an example, a fold-out brochure essentially, which shows you what's on, where to go, more at seasonal time. So that's what I think they were looking at with that, rather than a ton of leaflets. Perhaps it was those arrival points. Here's what's on, going on. One of the things that was used an example was the Estuary Festival. So we had a family guide for the Estuary Festival events, which was handed out, and it's quite family friendly in terms of the hotspots and the borough, the key locations. That was the sort of thing we thought, could we have more of? So it was just for the arrival points. In terms of data, your question, more anecdotal, I suppose. It's not sort of said we would get extra return on investment if we had paper brochures. It was just a suggestion that was put forward by the Task and Finish group.
And what are the identified arrival points in the borough? I would imagine, I'm guessing, sort of 60-70% of people are going to arrive in the borough by car. I don't see a logical arrival point. And the rest arriving by public transport. By bus, it will be dispersed across the borough. By train, yes, there's a single point. Have we investigated whether they'll host the brochures? I'm just sceptical as to whether they'll have any real impact sitting on a shelf or a desk in the library, because, I mean, your Estuary Festival is an entirely different environment. People are already attending the festival because it's been promoted. I don't think it's a relevant example, to be frank. So I'm just challenging the effectiveness of the spend there compared to doing something like building an email database of people who've ever inquired and doing regular newsletters, etc. I'm sorry I didn't contribute that to the Task and Finish group, but it just occurred to me as I read the report.
Yeah, it's a very good point. Yeah, I think we're not dead set on that suggestion. So in terms of the paper brochures, so yes, you know, the estuary was used as an example, but the strategy won't live or die if we have paper brochures or not effectively. So happy to take your suggestion on board, councillor, and pivot slightly and go with more the digital advertising side of things, which will slightly be covered, but we can jig that spend around.
I mean, ideally it's not all or nothing, we know that, but I'm just looking for the biggest bang we can get for our modest buck.
Yeah, no, thank you.
Councillor Knott.
Thank you, Chair. It's not so much as a question as an observation under engagement. You've got the Hadley and Thundersley archives. Are you meaning the Hadley and Thundersley Community Archive Group, or are you talking about two different archive groups? Under engagement. 4.9.
The Hadley and Thundersley Community Archive groups, they were involved in the workshop sessions that were under the previous iteration of the strategy, but it's still fed into the
So it's one group?
Yeah.
Yeah. Could we just have that changed to Hadley and Thundersley Community Archive Group?
Okay, yeah.
Thank you.
Councillor Larman.
Thank you, Chair. Following on from Councillor Edwards, there's been a promotion, it's been a TV celebrity, I don't know if you've had it come up on your Facebook, about walks around Essex, and he's taking walks in, I lived at Malden, you seen it? I couldn't find it. I can't remember the celebrity's name, but he's made it look really interesting, and he's been doing them in Malden, and he's done some in Benfleet, didn't he? He did some, and I think that's a really good way of getting it onto social media and then sharing it. And I know I shared a few of my things, but I think it's paper. I agree. Paper brochures don't sort of hit everybody, and they even when you're getting given to them in the street, you stuff them in your bag, and it's not always the best way. So it might be worth the investment. Thank you.
Absolutely, yeah. So one of the things that we've looked at for this is something called Go Jointly, which is around that whole heritage walks piece. So it's essentially a project that was piloted by Essex County Council, but we can introduce curated walks. So, for example, Canby Seafront, Hadley, all over the borough. So that you could tell a story while people were going on these sort of heritage trail walks. It's very engaging, and I think that might be the sort of thing that might help with that. What the celebrity in Malden did. Yeah. So.
Councillor Edwards.
Just looking at 5.4.3, there are other references in here, but talking about the Hadley Park Olympic mountain bike track, and this should be an absolute huge asset for us. From people that I know that do use the park, the maintenance is by no way keeping up with the usage. Can we, if not as part of this report and strategy, but have a specific action to investigate what the promise of Olympic legacy and funding is, because you can't have a legacy if the funding stops immediately. I don't think the Olympic Committee would have missed it. Certainly the people I know involved fully believe that there was ongoing funding. if what it was and where it's gone to and why it's not being applied to keep the park up to date so that it's a world-class facility that we can promote.
So if we can refer you to the action at the bottom of page 24, it's specifically around that point around what can we do in Hadley in terms of both that cycle facility element, but also the glamping offer that's in that location as well. It's not on our land, so we can't directly control that. So it is a partnership piece of work that we need to do around that point.
Thank you. Can I ask if we can have page numbers next time as well, please?
Councillor Cortez.
Thank you, Chair. Only a really small point on page 26. The appendix is you've got Rookery View Hall listed twice as assets.
Thank you, that'll be corrected. Thank you.
Do members have any further questions? No? Members, I will move the 3 recommendations set out at paragraph 3.1 of the report. Do I have a seconder?
I'm happy to second that.
Councillor Knott, sorry. Is that agreed, members?
Agreed.
Thank you. Again, I would like to spread my thanks to councillors and officers for all the work they have done on this report. I know it wasn't easy. Thank you. Item 5. Report from Cabinet, houses in multiple occupation HMOs in Castle Point. Members, we have before us a report from the Assistant Director of Development Services which sets out details relating to the number of homes of multiple occupation located within Castle Point and the impact of these on the local amenity and people's well-being. Mr. Garner, please introduce the report.
Thank you very much, Chair. Good evening, councillors. Thank you for allowing us to bring this item back to the committee this evening, as requested at the last meeting. Officers have revisited the report and returned this evening with detailed responses to the questions raised by members on the 1st of October. These responses are summarised within the report and are hopefully self-explanatory. However, in summary, question 1 related to how we would respond to potential compensation claims should an Article 4 direction be implemented. And the answer to that is we would respond robustly to any compensation claim, not taking it at face value and requiring evidence of such claims to be provided. And those claims could seek to cover things such as abortive costs for planning applications, architects' fees, and also the potential loss of land value and anticipated profit. Question 2 related to how often have officers been called to investigate problems with licensed HMOs in the borough. There have been 5 complaints in the last 10 years, only one of which has been substantiated and related to the living conditions for tenants, and this was resolved by the owner. Question 3 was about how council tax works for HMOs. HMOs are treated as single-family dwellings for the purpose of council tax, so are banded and assessed as any normal dwelling, and the liability for council tax resides with the landlord. Question 4 asked if mortgage lenders or those with a charge on the property are consulted as part of the HMO licence process. The answer to this is yes, and a list is provided at 3.9 of the report. Important to note is that there is no recollection within the Environmental Health Department or record on the system of a valid representation being made when consulting for an HMO licence. As part of the report as well, we've also provided updated information on the feasibility and legal framework surrounding an additional licensing scheme for smaller HMOs, courtesy of the Assistant Director for Environmental Health, Licensing and Community, Jeanette Parker East. As part of this, it's important to emphasise that while the committee is being asked to consider 4 options this evening, options 2, 3 and 4, which involve either additional licensing and Article 4 direction, or both, require firm and robust evidence to support their implementation. Officers have undertaken a thorough review of available data, including complaints, planning and licensing records, council tax and electoral data, and crime statistics. Based on this review, we've been unable to identify any evidence that either small or large HMOs are detrimentally impacting local amenity or residents' well-being. This absence of evidence means that, at present, there is no robust evidence to support the introduction of an additional licensing scheme or an Article 4 direction. Any such measures would need to be legally defensible and proportionate, and without clear evidence of harm, the council would be exposed to risk if it proceeded. So the information before you this evening, members, is in answer to your questions that were raised at the last overview and scrutiny meeting, and myself and my colleagues are happy to assist in answering any questions based on the new information that has been presented to you this evening. Thank you.
Thank you. Councillor Knott.
Thank you, Chair. From the report, there's varying estimates of HMOs in the borough. One estimate is 42, electoral records suggest 14, and the ONS recalls 20 as of 21. If we use official government figures that mention 14 or 20, then the 5 complaints in 10 years could be a significant percentage of the HMOs generating complaints. Could I ask how many of those 5 complaints were made in the last 12 months? And I ask because if a majority were made more recently, that could suggest an emerging problem. Thank you.
I've got the information. If you could just give me a minute to count it up. Only 2 of them were in the last 12 months. Only 2 were in the last 12 months.
Are there any further questions? Councillor Cortez.
Thank you, Chair. With regards to the Article 4 direction, what would be the best way to negate any compensation being paid? Could we schedule it for 12 months' time? Would that negate any risk of compensation?
Thank you. Any immediate Article 4 direction is liable to compensation. However, as you correctly have picked out, if it was a non-immediate Article 4 direction that provided 12 months' notice, there is no compensation payable under that regime.
Councillor Edwards.
If I can just follow up on Councillor Knott's question for a bit of clarification. The report tells us that there was only one of the 5 complaints against licensed HMOs could be substantiated. Can you just tell us whether that was within the last year?
No, that was in the 2021 year.
So just to be absolutely clear, there have been no substantiated complaints in the last 4 years?
Correct.
Thank you.
Councillors, are there any further questions? No? Members, I will move the recommendations set out at paragraph 2.1 of the report.
We need to choose one of the recommendations. There are 4 recommendations that you go with.
I've got them.
Yeah. So you choose one of those.
Okay. The recommendations. 1, not to introduce any new measures.
You can't choose all 4, they're all separate. So not to choose any of them, they're the ones that we have no evidence for, but assuming that they're happy with that recommendation to go ahead.
Right. It is proposed that the committee recommends to Cabinet either 2, 1, not introduce any new measures, or 2, introduce an optional licensing strategy for small HMOs, or 3, introduce an Article 4 direction to remove permitted development rights on buildings for HMOs of between 3 and 5 occupants, only if there is firm evidence to support that option, or option 4, introduce both an optional licensing strategy and an Article 4 direction so that the licensing and the planning are aligned only if there is a firm evidence to support that option. Councillor Cortez.
Thank you, Chair. what one of those would be the optional licensing but a deferral for 12 months on Article 4?
Anyone can answer that?
That could be, I mean, if members wanted to propose an alternative, they could do that. Wouldn't, on those options that are on the paper before you this evening, deferring future Article 4 direction isn't form part of one of those recommendations, but it could be something that members could suggest.
Councillor Thomas.
Sorry, yeah, it was literally the same question because I believe from our previous session briefing that one was if we wanted Article 4, which was immediate, could incur costs, considerable costs to this council, should we be sued or whatever. And the other one was to defer for 12 months because after 12 months it would come in anyway. But neither of them options are there. And I thought that's what we were looking at tonight to come back to.
So as was covered at the last meeting, the evidence that's been presented to members doesn't show that there is justification to implement an Article 4 direction either now or to look to implement one now but postpone it for 12 months. If it was something that members wanted, I believe it was mentioned, please correct me if I'm wrong, that it could be something that was kept under review and could be returned back to the committee for consideration, but it wasn't, there isn't the evidence available at the moment for us to support an Article 4 direction, either an immediate one or a non-immediate one.
Councillor Edwards.
I mean, when we get to the point of voting, I have an amendment to suggest to point 2, which may bring the debate forward. I don't know if you want me to suggest that now and we can debate it.
Yes, please, Councillor.
I mean, I think it's clear from the report that we don't have the evidence to support us going for 3 or 4. We've got very clear direction on that. The only option we've got for gathering evidence, should that become necessary, is option 2. So what I would propose is that we add to that, that we bring back, we introduce an optional licensing strategy for small HMOs and bring that back for 6 monthly consideration by this committee.
Stephen?
If I come back on that point, the report sets out, and we've gone into more detail about the legislation surrounding the optional licensing regime, and that also requires there to be evidence. Whilst I appreciate it's not on option 2, recommendation 2 before you this evening, it requires that there is evidence of. I'm sorry, I'm going to have to defer to either Jeanette or Joe about the exact wording. I've forgotten the exact wording of the bit of legislation.
Jeanette? Joe?
Councillor, the only way to actively do that is if you can do it on the basis of complaints or people who would want advice about setting up an HMO of that kind, or to physically inspect all of the properties that are likely to have 3 or 4 occupants. There are considerable issues with finding those because the smaller ones are not obvious compared with the larger HMOs. We can usually find ways of finding those, but 3 and 4 ones are very much harder to find. We could do a survey, but it would be extremely expensive. We'd probably have to get a contractor in to do that. It isn't something we can do in-house with the current resources. Jeanette could probably tell you a bit more about how much that would cost. Yes, it is possible to do it, but not in 6 months, not even with a contractor.
Sorry, can I just be guided to where in the report this is laid out for us, because I didn't pick that implication up from the report. I mean, we've got 4 options here, and we're effectively being told we've only got option 1, which is to do nothing. And I'm not. So can you just show me where in the report it was made clear that option 2 is not really an option?
We did put in the report the relevant sections of the Housing Act, and apologies, I thought it was fairly straightforward from the actual legislation itself that we have to have justification for a selective licensing scheme.
I'm just going to jump in there because I think the justification for the selective licensing scheme is we have no visibility of the HMOs in the borough. And therefore, if you license them, we gain the visibility we need to make informed decisions.
Sorry, if I can just take you to section 56. In order for the authority to designate an additional HMO licensing, there must be a significant proportion of the HMOs in that area that are being managed sufficiently ineffectively to give rise or be likely to give rise to one or more particular problems, either for those occupying the HMOs or for members of the public. We have no evidence of them being managed ineffectively, and what Joe was trying to explain was that in order to be able to assess that, we would have to do an inspection of all the suspected small HMOs, that's those with 3 or more people in them. We already licensed those with 5 or more, and as we've said, we've had, if there were likely to be problems with HMOs, I would have assumed that it would be the larger HMOs with more people in them. So if you want to designate additional HMO licensing, then we would need to do an inspection of every suspected HMO with 3 or 4 residents, and we would obviously come across quite some pushback as to our grounds for doing that.
So this is the second meeting that we're having on this topic, and this is the first time we've been told that option 2's not an option. It was clear from the report last time that we needed evidence on options 3 and 4 to introduce Article 4 directions. I've got to say I'm quite annoyed to be sitting here talking about this again when it wasn't an option. Can you just explain why it's even on here as an option when the officers clearly didn't consider it to be one? Effectively, our only option is to do nothing. So why are we wasting our time sitting here discussing doing nothing when this is a real concern for residents? We lack evidence. Everybody's saying we lack any visibility. We lack any evidence. The law might be an ass. It clearly is. But, you know, there should be, you know, I think it goes to the monitoring officer to find a legal way to do it. Our lawyers are supposed to enable us, not to, the laws aren't there, they're there to enable and protect communities. With no visibility, we can't do it. The licensing scheme seems the only logical way to do that. Why are we in the situation where we've got 3 out of 4 options in front of us are not exercisable?
I can't answer that. All I can sort of say is that that's section 56 in the Housing Act, and in the same way you need evidence for an Article 4, you also need evidence for selective licensing, additional licensing.
That doesn't answer my question. I'm asking why we weren't told that at our first meeting.
Well, it was in the report because the relevant sections were in the original report. Again, I can only apologise for it not being clear.
It's not only that it wasn't clear, we had a long and lengthy debate and it was not made explicit at any point that introducing an operational, an optional licensing strategy wasn't an option. And to be frank, I had conversations with officers afterwards where I said my preferred option would be number 2, and nobody said, actually, we can't do that. And I'd have preferred that candour to have been delivered.
Sorry, if I could come back on that. I completely understand what you're saying, Councillor Edwards, and part of preparing the answers and bringing this report back was members had indicated that that was their preferred options. We went and did further investigation into that. I apologise fully, it's my report that wasn't made clear in the first report, but now it's come before us and we've looked into it, that there needs to be that evidence. It's not, and Jeanette, correct me if I'm wrong, it's not that we we don't have that evidence at the moment, and it's not that we can't do it. It's that there are going to be potential implications of doing it, and whether we can go out and survey those HMOs, whether we have the legal right to go and do that, and that is something that could be looked into.
Thank you. Councillor Cortez.
Thank you, Chair. Probably one for Stephen again. What would be the compensation if we went for the optional licensing? We understand that there's the cost implication for if we went for Article 4, that there'd be claims. What if we went for the selective licensing? Do we know what we'd be open to for that?
I'll defer to either Jeanette or Joe for that one.
I'm sorry, I don't understand the question.
So if we went for the Article 4, we would be open to claims of compensation, I understand. What would we be open to if we went for the optional licensing?
Nothing that we're aware of other than...
So we could do it then?
We
If there's
could.
no penalty, we could do it?
It could potentially be appealed, but that's the only recourse I'm aware of.
So even though we haven't got the evidence, we're not aware of any real...
Well, when I say appeal, it could potentially go to a judicial review with the implications financially if we lost it.
At least we'd get an answer.
Are there any further questions?
Thank you, Chairman. Sorry, thank you, Chair. So, councillors, I understand all the comments that you've made and the concerns that you have. I was going to just suggest is just reflect on the legal background to how we designate for this voluntary licensing, if I may. And just take you through that process because it's something we've been talking about. So, in the report under 4.3, paragraph 4.3, it outlines section 56 of the Housing Act 2004, and that is the basis on which the council can designate areas subject to additional licence. So just bear that in mind. That's the only mechanism we have. And it says, excuse me before I read it out, the local housing authority may designate either the area of the district or the area of their district or an area in their district as subject to additional licensing in relation to the description of HMOs specified in the designation if the requirements of this section are met. Number 2, and this is the important bit, the authority, or all of it's important, but the authority must consider that a significant proportion of HMOs of that description in the area are being managed sufficiently ineffectively as to give rise or likely to give rise to one or more particular problems either for those occupying HMOs or for members of the public. That, if you then scroll down, it also refers to subsection 5. In forming an opinion as to the matter mentioned in subsection 2, which I just read out, the authority must have regard to any information regarding the extent to which any codes of practice approved under section 333 have been complied with by the persons managing the HMO. So that's the test that we have to go through. At the present moment in time, based on the information we have, without actually going out and surveying these individual properties ourselves, the only evidence that we have is that we've received no complaints, or I think it's no complaints about these smaller HMOs, not the larger ones, which we've already addressed, the smaller ones. That's the evidence that we have at the present moment in time. So the question that you need to consider is, do you want us, in pursuing a designation of the whole of the authority or part of the authority area, because it doesn't have to be the whole borough, do you want us to go out and collect that information, that evidence, to justify going through this process? Because that could be a potential recommendation that you put forward, if that helps.
Councillor Cortez.
Thank you. At what cost? Do we know roughly, or would it be out of the existing officers' time?
So I haven't got a figure at hand. So because what we have to analyse is what is meant by the codes of practice. What do the codes of practice cover? And they cover a whole range of things. Some, part reading of it is, does it have electricity, safe electricity, gas? The type of stuff we've been doing as part of the housing, for example. So as part of our housing assessments. So the test is against the manager of the property and whether or not the manager of the property has been hitting their obligations as defined by the code of practice. But it could be significant. It depends on, there is another issue, which is on what grounds are we entering these properties? Now, we can carry out inspections in private properties, understand. Thank you, Joanne, she's nodding. But we've got to have a reason for doing so. Just turning up and saying, oh, we just want to inspect it is not a reason. So if you want the recommendation to be to Cabinet that we, I'm sorry we haven't got it all here, but that actually we want to pursue this and we're instructing officers to go away and pursue this, but do it in the right way, that is an option that's open to you tonight.
The only reason we're sitting here is due to residents' concerns over HMOs. All right, we currently don't have any evidence of a problem with HMOs. Now, people locally may disagree, but that appears to be because the HMOs are invisible to the council largely, and legislation doesn't actually seem to manage the problem. I can't see how you wouldn't anticipate needing to know the number of HMOs in order to manage them, but we didn't draft the legislation. I think the only recommendation is probably to get a costing to do a job that would result in us having visibility of the HMOs. I fear that we won't have the budget to actually do it.
That's fine, and yes, you're absolutely right. Unfortunately, the legislation around HMOs, the fact that the licensing of HMOs and the planning of HMOs and the planning permissions of HMOs aren't aligned. This is an area, and I have been in meetings quite recently where people have been talking about this problem and the fact that we need to start putting pressure. This was through an organisation called Arch, to actually start putting some pressure onto government to rectify this, because there's a lot of houses, HMOs, which are falling under the radar, and local authorities don't have that level of visibility. And that's why you get the unreliability of the data, as a result of that.
Councillor Cortez.
Thank you again. I certainly, if it comes that we have to vote on one of them, I won't be voting for any of them. I'm certainly not going to vote for do nothing. I can't put my name to it. I'd be prepared, and I think a lot of my colleagues would feel the same, that it doesn't sit well with the answer being do nothing. But if it was to revisit this after we've at least got some costings, I think I could live with that.
Sorry, Councillor Edwards.
I have to do a volte-face on my original proposal for an amendment to number 2, but I'd be happy to propose an amendment to number 1, that we ask officers to investigate the cost of securing visibility of the true number of HMOs in the borough, and bring that back to this committee so that we can then use that as context for another discussion on this.
Thank you. Yeah, we'll can I just add to that? It's not just the costs, but it's also the risks as well. So there are risks of this. If we get this wrong and we act ultra-virusly, then that puts the council at risk. So it's not just the costs, but we'll come back with that full risk assessment as well. You need that full risk assessment.
Agreed. Do you need me to formulate words?
Yes, if we can have the wording for the recommendation, please.
Okay, can I suggest then that we amend point 1 to read not to introduce any new measures without clarification from officers on the costs and risks of a survey to reveal, or a process to reveal the true number of HMOs in the borough.
Members, I therefore suggest that we adjourn the meeting for 10 minutes in order to finalise the wording of a recommendation. Do members agree?
Agreed.
Seconded?
Happy to do that.
Right, thank you, councillors. Right, please see on the screen the recommendation that has been wrote. Do you agree with it?
Yes.
Right. Then I will move the recommendation. Is that agreed? Do I? Oh, sorry. Apologies. I'm so confused now. The recommendation is that officers report on the cost and the risk for legally securing an accurate count of HMOs in the borough to inform the committee whether it has the grounds to proceed with an optional licensing scheme. Do I have a seconder? I've got 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. Thank you very much. Councillor Edwards, did you have your hand up?
No, he's seconded.
He's seconded.
Yeah,
Thank you.
is that agreed?
Right, bring it in.
No, just need to get that agreed.
Okay. Members, is that agreed? Agreed. Hey, thank you. Sorry, Councillor Knott, you would like to add a few words.
Thank you, Chair. We found it very frustrating tonight that we've not been able to vote for the optional licensing strategy or Article 4. I would have liked to have seen both of those in the borough, and I'm sure that all my fellow councillors would as well. Is it possible we could just have a show of hands, just so that it can be recorded, that had we had that option to vote for those, who would have supported that, please? Thank you.
Members, do you agree?
We do so with a show of hands.
Thank you. All in agreement. Thank you.
Sorry, can I just clarify? We've got 4 points on the. I know what you're trying to achieve, but we've got 4 points, and we've just done. Vote. If we raise our hands like that, we're voting for options that we can't select together, and we're conflating the two key options that are on there. Well, I mean, it's not a valid vote in any way. It's an indication.
No,
of
it's
preference.
not. It's. So my understanding is that there's desire to see it recorded in the formal decision notice of the meeting. That had that been possible, then you would have unanimously gone for it.
I fully understand that, but we've got two substantive points that we should be clear on, and we've been made absolutely clear that we have no option to go for an Article 4 direction legally. So I think the question is, would we have gone for a licensing scheme rather than both? We legally can't do Article 4. It's as simple as that, whether we'd like to or not. Yeah, I just don't think we're expressing a clear opinion. Our clear opinion, if you want to say the clear opinion is that we would like to have clarity and the ability to restrict the overdevelopment of HMOs, I'll happily put my hand up to it. But I think we just need to be clear that we're not expressing that we'd have supported things that legally we can't do, because that's not something any of us could have voted for.
Yeah, thank you. Councillor Knott, would you like to come back with that, please?
I did make that clear in what I said, had we had been able to vote on that, which obviously we couldn't, which is why we've gone down this route now. But I'm quite happy if you want to show of hands for the second option.
Thank you, councillors. Agenda item 7, work plan. Members, the updated work plan has been circulated. At the request of members, we are looking to add a review of IT policy to the work plan in February. Are there any further suggestions?
Thank you, Chair. I've asked this for a couple of committees now. Was there any update on the splash pad?
Unfortunately, I don't have an update, Councillor Cortez. However, I do believe that there is an Asset Review Board meeting tomorrow, so I will get an update and I'll circulate that to you all after the meeting. Thank you.
Thank you, Sonia. Are there any further suggestions? No? Is that agreed, members?
Agreed.
That concludes the business for this evening. Thank you for your attendance. Thank you to our independent person, Jenny Beaumont. It's in there. And thank you all for your attendance. Thank you very much.